Charleston White just dropped a bombshell on King Harris for disrespecting 50 Cent, and the twist in this story is not what most people expected.
But I told T.I. he should have kicked that boy when last year. If T.I. would have kicked that boy last year, that boy wouldn't have had to jack him up today.
Instead of staying neutral or simply stirring the pot like he often does, White made it clear he's standing firmly on 50 Cent's side. And that means King Harris has suddenly found himself right in the line of fire. In this video, we're going to break down everything Charleston White said about King Harris, why he felt the need to step into the situation, and what this could mean for the young rapper moving forward.
King is behaving and going on with these kind of actions and inactions and traits and characteristics.
Because this isn't just another random internet argument. It's the latest chapter in a rap beef that has been simmering for almost 2 decades. At the center of the drama is one simple but explosive question.
Criminal-minded boy, then you are up and you and failing as a father.
What happens when a rapper's son jumps into a decades-old feud between 2 hip-hop veterans and drags a deceased mother into the conversation?
There's rapping in it. Tell T.I. I got it the best diss song he can have right now. Boy can't find no better diss.
Just to defend his own. That's exactly what happened in February of 2026. And like many conflicts in hip-hop, it all started with old smoke that never fully cleared.
I'm on the set of 50 couldn't activate it. 50 Cent tried to say don't nobody activate T.I. like I doing. Yeah.
The tension between 50 Cent and T.I. dates all the way back to 2007. During a Hot 97 interview that year, 50 Cent publicly questioned the idea of any rapper crowning himself the king of hip-hop. Everyone listening understood the subtext immediately. It was a direct jab at T.I., who would famously embrace the title King of the South after the release of his 2006 album, King. During that interview with Angie Martinez, 50 asked a question that instantly sent shockwaves through the culture. Who decides that title, the fans or the rapper himself?
I told T.I. he should have kicked that boy when last year. If T.I. would have kicked that boy last year, that boy wouldn't have had the jacket.
T.I. clearly took the comment personally. Later that same year, tensions escalated when 50 Cent appeared at T.I.'s Screamfest stage alongside Jay-Z and Kanye West.
Out at the Falcons game, embarrassing the family. This is the king.
At that point, what had once been subtle competition suddenly had a face and a name. Then things got even more complicated.
All of a sudden, boy, you disrespecting Tippy. You disrespecting Tiny and Tippy.
In 2008, T.I.'s federal gun case resulted in a 1-year prison sentence, despite the fact that he had originally been facing the possibility of decades behind bars. Shortly after the sentencing, 50 Cent released a GUnit track that many listeners interpreted as a direct shot at T.I. The lyrics questioned how someone connected to 10 machine guns could end up serving only 12 months.
I was born into a situation and circumstances and an environment that most kids dream about, mother. You wasn't born into some horrible condition.
Echoing rumors that were already circulating in the streets. Those bars fueled whispers that T.I. had cooperated with authorities, something the Atlanta rapper has always strongly denied. And from that moment forward, the tension between the two artists never truly disappeared. The situation resurfaced again in September 2010 when T.I. and his wife Tiny were arrested on drug charges involving substances resembling ecstasy. T.I. ultimately served 11 months for violating his parole. Once again, 50 Cent jumped into the conversation online, publicly questioning why Tiny hadn't taken the blame for the charges. T.I. responded in a 2011 interview with Vibe magazine, shutting down the entire narrative. He made it clear that no one in his family was ever going to be pressured to taking a criminal charge for someone else. In his words, anyone suggesting that kind of sacrifice was nothing more than a coward. Later that same year, mutual friends arranged a phone call between the two rappers in an attempt to calm things down. According to 50 Cent, neither of them had even requested the conversation. It simply happened through people they both respected. For a while, the conflict seemed to fade away. The public arguments stopped, the tension cooled. But the truth is, the beef never actually died. It was just sleeping. Years later, in July 2020, the rivalry unexpectedly resurfaced when T.I. challenged 50 Cent to a versus battle on 50's 45th birthday. T.I. publicly invited him to step into the ring with 20 records and prove who really had the stronger catalog. 50 Cent responded the way he often does, with sarcasm. He joked on Instagram that someone must have given T.I. the same weed Smokey smoked in the movie Friday, brushing off the challenge entirely. But T.I. didn't let it go. He continued pushing the idea during interviews, even telling Hot 97's Ebro that he believed he and 50 were equally matched musically. He described himself as having a 900-pound gorilla inside him and insisted he was ready for the battle whenever 50 was. By September of that year, the back and forth had turned into full-blown trolling. T.I. was calling 50 a young baboon face, while 50 clapped back with jokes about T.I.'s beard and sarcastically asking where his Trap Music Museum exhibit was. Behind the scenes, the two artists even discussed the possibility of actually doing the versus battle while they were both in Los Angeles performing shows, but the event never materialized. In a 2021 interview on The Morning Hustle, 50 Cent explained that once the world reopened after the pandemic lockdowns, the versus format simply didn't make as much sense anymore. Still, T.I. kept applying pressure. At the BMF premiere afterparty in September 2021, he even called 50 out directly on stage, telling the crowd to pressure him into accepting the versus battle. 50 Cent stood there, smiling quietly, and chose not to respond. For years, the rivalry simmered quietly in the background, until February 2026 arrived and everything exploded again. This wasn't even the first time Charleston White and King Harris had crossed paths. White once claimed that he had tried to confront King physically in the past, and the hostility between them had been brewing long before the 2026 explosion. At one point, T.I. himself had publicly referred to Charleston White as a parasite, and the tension between the two camps had only grown stronger over time. When King Harris previously threatened Charleston White online, White responded with warnings so direct and so aggressive that there was absolutely no room for interpretation. This wasn't a brand new conflict, it was old beef, now loaded with fresh ammunition. Charleston White pointed to a moment from November 2023 as proof that King Harris had been moving recklessly for a while. That was the now infamous incident at an Atlanta Falcons game, the moment that first put King's temper and defiance on full display for the entire country to see. According to White, King's 2026 rant aimed at 50 Cent wasn't some random emotional outburst. It was simply the latest chapter in a pattern. In White's view, T.I. had allowed his son to run wild for years without serious consequences, protected by fame, money, and family status, until the day King finally chose to start a war with someone who didn't care about any of those things. A pattern of controversy. King Harris didn't suddenly appear out of nowhere during the 50 Cent situation. By February 2026, the 21-year-old had already built up a long list of public controversies, each one contributing to the reputation he carries today. To many observers, King came across as a young man who was fiercely loyal to his family, extremely impulsive, and still trying to figure out how to navigate life as the son of one of Atlanta's most recognizable rap icons. His first major viral moment came in May 2022, when a 17-year-old King went live on Instagram inside a Waffle House in the Atlanta area. The situation started over something incredibly small, pickles on his order. But things escalated quickly when staff members enforced a no-cursing policy after King started complaining about the food. Within seconds, the argument exploded. King jumped onto the counter, got directly into an employee's face, and began shouting threats, including saying he would pistol whip the worker. Eventually, he walked out with a corrected order, but the video went viral, and the footage would follow him across the internet for years. T.I. later addressed the situation during his own Instagram Live session. He explained that both he and King's uncles had spoken to the teenager and were confused by the behavior. T.I. told his son to enjoy life and stop entertaining low-energy situations. Looking back now, that advice clearly didn't stick. Legal trouble began.
Just a few months later, in August 2022, King Harris ran into legal trouble in Pickens County, Georgia. He was charged with speeding, driving on a suspended license, and driving under the influence. King failed to appear in court for the case, which led to a bench warrant being issued for his arrest. That warrant finally caught up with him 2 years later, in October 2024.
Police in Dunwoody, Georgia pulled over King's BMW after the car nearly clipped a patrol vehicle while leaving a gas station. Officers reportedly smelled marijuana and noticed a firearm holstered on his hip. King was taken into custody and booked into DeKalb County Jail on the outstanding warrant. He was released the very next day after the warrant was recalled, but the incident added yet another chapter to his growing list of controversies. The Falcons game incident. But the moment that foreshadowed the 50 Cent confrontation most clearly happened in November 2023. King was live streaming from a suite at an Atlanta Falcons game when a heated argument broke out between him and his parents. The argument centered around how King had been raised. King rejected the internet narrative that he grew up with a silver spoon. Instead, he insisted that he spent most of his childhood living at his grandmother's house in tougher conditions than people realized. T.I. challenged him immediately. At one point, he asked King if he had ever woken up with a roach crawling on his face, implying that King had never truly experienced the hardships he was claiming. Tiny offered her own explanation for the grandmother situation. According to her, King didn't stay there because life was harder. He stayed there because he had more freedom and could get away with things he couldn't do at home. The conversation quickly turned physical. At one point, T.I. put King in a headlock, yelling at him for embarrassing the family, all while the live stream kept rolling. Millions of viewers watched the moment unfold in real time. Afterward, King's brother Damani attempted to calm the situation publicly, calling it a misunderstanding and telling fans to relax. T.I. also posted a message emphasizing family unity, but the internet had already seen what it needed to see. The footage even sparked wild rumors online, suggesting that T.I. might not be King's biological father. Tiny shut those rumors down immediately, calling the speculation the biggest bull ever. Charleston White's interpretation. Charleston White had been watching all of these events unfold in real time, and he had already formed a very strong opinion. In White's view, King Harris didn't need encouragement or applause, he needed discipline. White told King directly during a live stream that he had been born into a life most kids from struggling neighborhoods could only dream about. He wasn't raised in dangerous conditions, he wasn't surviving the streets, he was living comfortably. According to White, the anger King displayed online wasn't about survival or respect, it was about entitlement. More drama around King Harris. King Harris also found himself in another internet clash in 2024, this time with comedian Rusky. The argument centered around the phrase, "standing on business." King claimed he had popularized the phrase during the Falcons incident and threatened to confront Rusky after the comedian used it in a comedy skit. The situation briefly looked like it might escalate, but it was eventually resolved peacefully during Quavo's Huncho Day, where Rusky confirmed that King actually showed up and the two handled things face-to-face without violence. Personal life in the spotlight. In January 2025, King went viral again, this time discussing his relationship with the mother of his child, Jania Nana Epps. During the viral clip, King openly admitted that he was in an open relationship, claiming that his partner already knew he was seeing other women and didn't have a problem with it. The internet reacted exactly the way you'd expect. Some people respected the honesty. Others felt it was reckless oversharing from a young father who seemed to enjoy the attention almost as much as the controversy. Serious allegations resurfaced. In July 2025, longtime accuser Sabrina Peterson resurfaced with serious allegations involving T.I., Tiny, and King Harris. Peterson claimed she had evidence, including text messages, suggesting involvement in trafficking and exploitation involving a young woman she described as a victim.
The Harris family strongly denied the allegations. They described Peterson's claims as a personal vendetta dating back to 2021. No criminal charges have ever been filed in connection with the allegations. The family also pursued legal action for defamation, and in one ruling, Peterson was ordered to pay roughly $97,000 in damages. The accusations remain unproven in court. Why this context matters. All of this background explains why the 50 Cent confrontation didn't happen in a vacuum. By the time February 2026 arrived, King Harris already had a well-known reputation: passionate, impulsive, fiercely loyal to his family, and willing to escalate situations far beyond what most people expected. So when he chose to go after 50 Cent's deceased mother, it shocked people, but it didn't entirely surprise them, because for King Harris, pushing things too far had already become part of the pattern. In the end, 50 Cent treated the entire situation exactly the same way he treats most of his conflicts, not as a serious threat, but as content to be managed. To him, King Harris wasn't an opponent worth stepping into the booth for. He was simply another moment in the cycle, something that could be handled with a caption, a meme, and a perfectly timed Instagram post. But the internet? The internet had no intention of staying neutral. Within hours, social media turned into a full-blown courtroom where millions of people were ready to deliver their verdict before the arguments had even finished. Memes spread across timelines faster than any diss track ever could. Fans tracked every post, every deletion, every comment like war correspondents documenting a battlefield. And the debates that followed were relentless, sometimes vicious, sometimes thoughtful, but always intense. At the center of the argument was a single, uncomfortable question: where exactly is the line between defending your mother and disrespecting someone else's dead parent? The reactions were almost perfectly split, roughly 50-50.
Two sides digging in so deeply that no amount of evidence from the other camp could change their minds. On X, highly engaged posts about King's rant pulled in tens of thousands of interactions. Some fans praised King Harris for showing what they described as real loyalty, saying he had more heart standing up for his mother than 50 Cent had ever shown in decades of talking tough on records. Others saw something very different. To them, bringing a deceased mother into a rap feud crossed a line that hip-hop culture had traditionally respected, an unwritten rule, a boundary that should never be broken. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. The internet debate explodes. Over on Reddit, the conversation fractured into several different debates. Each one could have easily lasted an entire week on its own. Some people argued that 50 Cent had only truly won one major beef in his career, the legendary feud with Ja Rule, and that even that victory had been heavily supported by Dr. Dre and Eminem during GUnit's peak years. According to that side of the argument, 50 had been coasting off that reputation ever since. Others pointed to 50's own complicated relationship with his son Marquise Jackson, arguing that someone who had spent years publicly mocking his own child couldn't suddenly claim the moral high ground when it came to family respect. Charleston White's involvement created its own controversy. His supporters praised him for being consistent. White had long argued that invoking the dead in a conflict crosses a permanent line, and they saw his response as standing firmly on that principle. But his critics weren't convinced. They accused him of selective outrage and blatant clout chasing, pointing out that White himself had spent years insulting Tiny Harris and the Harris family without showing the same level of moral concern. Rick Ross enters the chat. Then there was Rick Ross, whose cosign added gasoline to the entire situation. Ross publicly praised King Harris for wearing a shirt featuring the image of 50 Cent's late mother. Some fans saw Ross's reaction as genuine support for family loyalty. Others viewed it as something far more calculated. After all, Ross and 50 Cent have been rivals for well over a decade. To many observers, Ross didn't care about the morality of the situation at all. He simply saw an opportunity to take another shot at his longtime rival. But Ross's involvement raised a much bigger cultural question that hip-hop couldn't avoid. Was that shirt, a piece of merchandise featuring the image of a deceased woman, worn in a diss video by the son of her son's enemy, a new low for rap beef? Or was it simply the natural evolution of a genre that has always turned personal pain into public entertainment? T.I. turned controversy into promotion. While the internet was busy debating ethics, T.I. was doing something else entirely. He was turning the entire situation into promotion. Every bit of drama surrounding the feud was fueling the rollout of his album, Kill the King, which T.I. described as the final project of his career. And the timing of everything felt almost surgical. The lead single, Let 'Em Know, produced by Pharrell Williams, dropped right in the middle of peak beef activity. The song climbed to around number 43 on the Billboard Hot 100, marking T.I.'s highest solo chart position in more than a decade. The music video, directed by Hype Williams, featured luxury cars moving through Atlanta and Miami, a Pharrell cameo, and ad-libs from Young Dro that connected the new era of T.I. to the legacy of his earlier career.
At the 2026 Grammy Awards, T.I. confirmed that Kill the King would likely be his final album, a career-closing statement after 25 years in hip-hop. And the truth is, the album probably wouldn't have had the same energy without the controversy surrounding it. The beef gave the music oxygen, and the music gave the beef structure. It was a perfect example of how conflict and promotion can feed each other in modern hip-hop. A carefully timed strategy. The timing of every release felt intentional, almost like a promotional calendar built around headlines. T.I. dropped the track War the same night King's Rant went viral, featuring lyrics about a hibernating bear that shouldn't have been poked. The next day came The Right One, questioning why 50 Cent only seemed to have energy for attacking his own people. Soon after that, Lessons arrived, accompanied by artwork showing a skeletal version of 50 Cent inspired by his role in All Things Fall Apart. Within days, both King Harris and Damani released their own songs. The Harris household had effectively turned itself into a full-time content machine, releasing music, commentary, and visuals around the clock. Even T.I.'s son, King, entered the mix again with another track aimed directly at 50. The scoreboard debate. Some industry observers, including DJ academics, compared the situation to the cultural weight of Drake versus Kendrick Lamar. But that comparison actually highlighted just how uneven this battle really was. Drake and Kendrick traded lyrical punches, bar for bar, record for record. In the case of T.I. and 50 Cent, the situation looked very different. T.I. and his sons were releasing song after song. In 50 Cent, he didn't release a single diss track, not one. Instead, he responded the way he always does, with memes, with screenshots, with captions. And somehow, despite never touching a microphone, he still managed to stay at the center of the entire conversation. So depending on how you define victory, the outcome of this feud could look very different. Was T.I. winning because he dominated the music side? Or was 50 Cent winning because he controlled the internet narrative without ever stepping into the studio? That question is still up for debate. Outro. And that's the full story behind the Charleston White, King Harris, and 50 Cent situation. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more breakdowns of hip-hop beefs, industry drama, and behind-the-scenes stories like this one, make sure to check out the next video on your screen right now.